We've all heard the rule, leave eggs out too long and you're asking for trouble. For most of us, imagining eggs lasting beyond a week or two without refrigeration seems impossible. But the Amish? They've cracked the code, literally. Their eggs can last longer than your fridge's warranty, and they don't even use electricity. It's incredible how they've held on to these age-old traditions while the rest of us are tethered to modern appliances. For generations, they've perfected methods to keep eggs fresh for years. Yes, you heard that right. Years. And the best part? No fancy gadgets, no high-tech tricks, just pure ingenuity. Here's where it gets fascinating. You'd think preserving eggs for 15 years would require some futuristic tech, right? Nope. The Amish rely on one of the simplest, oldest methods imaginable, lime water. And no, I'm not talking about squeezing lime into your drink. This isn't about making margaritas. This trick is a game changer and has been around for centuries. So, what exactly is lime water? It's a solution made by dissolving calcium hydroxide, or slaked lime, in water. It's not as complicated as it sounds. Slaked lime has been used for ages in everything from building materials to food preservation. Now here's the genius part. When eggs are soaked in lime water, science takes over. Eggshells are covered in tiny pores. Normally, these pores let air and bacteria sneak in, causing the eggs to spoil over time. But when you submerge eggs in lime water, the solution seals those pores, creating an airtight barrier. No air, no bacteria, no spoilage. It's like giving your eggs a custom suit of armor. The result? Eggs that can last months or even years without going bad. Here's a cool historical twist. The Amish didn't invent this method. Lime water preservation dates back to medieval times, long before refrigerators were a thing. Back then, people had to be resourceful to survive harsh winters, and this technique was a lifesaver. The Amish are simply keeping this age-old tradition alive, but with a level of mastery most of us have forgotten. Isn't it wild to think that something as simple as lime water can outperform modern refrigeration? While most of us panic at the thought of a broken fridge, the Amish stay cool, literally with a method that doesn't even need electricity. And honestly, it might outlast your fridge with way fewer repairs. What's even more impressive is the sheer scale of it. The Amish aren't just preserving a dozen eggs, they're prepping for the long haul. A single family might preserve thousands of eggs in lime water over the course of a year, ensuring they're never without a steady supply. It's a level of preparedness that's almost hard to imagine. Meanwhile, I'm over here struggling to keep my store-bought dozen from going bad each week. And if lime water wasn't impressive enough, the Amish have another brilliant method. Oiling. Yes, oiling. No, it's not like giving your eggs a spa day, but it's just as effective. The Amish use mineral oil, a simple, harmless substance, to coat their eggs, and the results are astounding. Here's how it works. As mentioned earlier, eggshells have tiny pores that allow air and bacteria to enter, which causes spoilage. By coating the eggs in oil, those pores are sealed off entirely. Think of it as putting your egg in a protective bubble, blocking out oxygen and bacteria. The result? Fresh eggs for months, with zero risk of them turning into a sulfur-scented disaster. We all dread the thought of spoiled groceries, don't we? But let's talk about a method you've probably never heard of before. It might sound a little out there at first. Oiling eggs. Yep, coating your eggs in mineral oil. Sounds odd, right? I mean, who would think to slather groceries in oil? And for the record, don't try this with milk. But here's the thing. The Amish have known about this trick for ages, and now even modern homesteaders are rediscovering its genius. Mineral oil is cheap, easy to find, and surprisingly, it works like a charm. This little trick keeps eggs cozy and fresh, far outlasting the milk in your fridge. Curious? So was I. One day I decided to give it a shot. I grabbed a bottle of mineral oil from the skincare aisle at the pharmacy, yes, skincare, and set out to oil up some eggs. Let me tell you, it felt weird, like I was prepping the eggs for deep frying. But I went for it, and a few weeks later, those eggs were still as fresh as day one. Who knew a little oil could be such a game changer? Here's a fascinating tidbit. The idea of coating food to preserve it isn't new. Way back in the day, people would cover cheese or even meat in fat to make it last longer. The principle is the same. Seal the food from air, and you dramatically slow down spoilage. It's a timeless method that stood the test of time, even if most of us have swapped it out for plastic wrap and vacuum sealers. The beauty of oiling eggs is how simple it is. There's no complicated science, no fancy equipment. Just coat the egg in a thin layer of mineral oil and call it a day. With just a few minutes of effort, you've got eggs that can last through winter, or longer if you're really committed. Speaking of keeping traditions alive, let me tell you about a resource that dives deep into these old-school methods. It's a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, called 126 Superfoods and Preservation Methods from Crisis Times. It's packed with wisdom from eras like the Great Depression and wartime, times when people had to rely on ingenuity to survive. From highly nutritious foods to preservation techniques that feel almost forgotten, this book is a treasure trove. Why do we share this? Because we're probably the last generation that can pass these life-saving techniques to our children and grandchildren. Imagine if knowledge like this were lost. That's why we also recommend Nicola Pellion's book on herbal remedies, a guide that complements this old-school wisdom perfectly. If you're watching this on TV, grab your phone or tablet and look up our channel, Frugal Solutions. You'll find links to these books in our channel description or any video description. We believe these resources are priceless, especially in times of uncertainty. Now let's dive into the next fascinating method in the Amish egg preservation playbook, vinegar. Yes, that same tangy vinegar you drizzle on fries or toss into a salad. Turns out it's not just for sprucing up your potato chips. It's an egg-preserving powerhouse. The process is simple but effective. Eggs take a quick dip in vinegar, and its acidic nature works wonders. The acid breaks down bacteria and creates a protective layer on the eggshell. It's almost like giving your eggs a little armor upgrade. No swords or shields needed, just a humble bottle of vinegar. Once they've had their soak, these eggs are primed to last far longer than the ones sitting in your fridge. I always thought vinegar was just for cooking, or maybe some hardcore cleaning. But who knew it had these incredible preservation superpowers? Turns out, vinegar has a serious history too. Fun fact, Roman soldiers used vinegar to keep their food fresh during grueling marches. Imagine those battle-hardened warriors preserving rations the same way the Amish preserve eggs today. Makes you see vinegar in a whole new light, doesn't it? Though let's be honest, lugging around vinegar-soaked eggs while gearing up for battle doesn't sound like the glamorous part of history. No wonder they left that out of the textbooks. But here's the kicker. Vinegar isn't just an egg-preserving marvel. It's one of those ancient kitchen hacks that people have been using for ages. From pickling vegetables to preserving meats, vinegar's versatility is unmatched. Sure, we've all had that moment of doubt when looking at food sitting in vinegar. Is this really okay to eat? Spoiler alert, the Amish and the Romans would both say, absolutely. I'll admit I haven't personally tested the vinegar trick with eggs yet, but I'm tempted. Just imagine, a stockpile of eggs, safely preserved and ready for months. Sure, they might smell a bit tangy, but when you're sitting on a golden stash of breakfast while everyone else is scrambling, that's a win. And there's something satisfying about outsmarting time with such a simple natural substance. If vinegar had a resume, it'd read like this. Cleaning agent? Check. Salad dressing? Of course. Egg preserver? Who knew? If you've ever been hesitant to use vinegar for something outside the kitchen, here's your green light. It's cheap, versatile, and now surprisingly handy for keeping eggs fresh. So what actually makes eggs go bad in the first place? We've all had that unfortunate moment of cracking an egg and immediately regretting it. The main culprits? Bacteria, air, and moisture. Eggs, while cleverly designed by nature, have some vulnerabilities. Tiny pores in the shell let bacteria sneak in. Moisture creates the perfect environment for mold. And air? Well, oxidation is basically an egg's worst nightmare. This is where the Amish egg-preserving methods truly shine. While most of us rely on refrigerators and cross our fingers, the Amish are actively fighting these spoilage culprits like pros. Lime water seals the shell pores, blocking bacteria from entering. Oiling acts like locking the door and tossing the key, no air or moisture allowed. Vinegar takes out any bacteria on the shell before it even has a chance to cause trouble. These aren't just random hacks. They're solutions to problems most of us didn't even realize existed. For years, I thought my fridge was the ultimate egg saver. Turns out, it's just an overhyped sidekick. Sure, refrigeration slows spoilage, but it doesn't stop it entirely. Here's a fun fact to blow your mind. The eggs you buy from the grocery store have been washed and treated, which strips them of their natural protective layer. Yep, those shiny, pristine eggs in the carton are halfway to their expiration date before you even bring them home. Surprise, grocery store eggs are more fragile than they look. And here's something even wilder. Eggs don't actually need refrigeration, at least not in the way we're used to. In Europe, for example, eggs are sold and stored at room temperature. They're left on counters or in pantries, not crammed into refrigerators. So why do we refrigerate eggs in the US? It all comes down to regulations requiring eggs to be washed, which removes their natural defenses. Once that happens, refrigeration becomes essential to slow spoilage. Meanwhile, the Amish are over there leaving their eggs out for months or even years without breaking a sweat. No fancy appliances, no stress, just good old-fashioned know-how. Now, I'm not saying you should start leaving your grocery store eggs out on the counter. Those have been through the industrial process and definitely need the fridge. But isn't it fascinating to realize how much of what we consider necessary is really just a modern invention? The Amish are living proof that a little know-how and a few basic materials, like lime or oil, can go a long way in preserving eggs for years. No electricity, no fridge, just good old-fashioned wisdom. But don't think for a second that the Amish just grab any random egg, dunk it in lime water, or coat it in oil. Nope. They've got standards, high ones. In fact, their egg selection process is almost like a beauty pageant. Only the most pristine eggs make the cut. Here's how it works. First and foremost, freshness is non-negotiable. The Amish won't even look twice at an egg that's a few days old. They rely on sharp eyes and sometimes sharp noses to spot anything less than perfect. It's like when you're at the grocery store, squeezing every avocado to find the best one. Now imagine doing that with eggs. If an egg passes their test, looks good, feels right, it's in. Next up, the crack test. But not the kind you're thinking. The Amish are experts at spotting even the tiniest hairline cracks. Those sneaky flaws you'd never notice unless you were really paying attention. And for good reason. Cracks are an open invitation for bacteria. Any egg with a crack? Disqualified. Think of it like picking apples. You wouldn't grab a bruised or damaged one, right? It's the same deal here, except with way higher stakes. After all, if you're planning to store an egg for 15 years, it better be flawless. Here's a fun fact. An average Amish family might preserve thousands of eggs in a single year. Thousands. Considering their large families and their love of baking and hearty breakfasts, it makes sense. Imagine cracking open eggs for pancakes, knowing they were preserved back when your youngest was still learning to walk. Now that's long-term planning. So why go through all this trouble? Simple. When you're storing something for years, not days or weeks, you want to start with the best. A bad egg isn't just gross, it could ruin the whole batch. And let's be real, no one wants to crack open an egg a decade later only to regret every life choice that led to that moment. The Amish even go the extra mile by checking their preserved eggs regularly. Any sign of spoilage, and the egg is gone. No bad eggs left behind. One of their most straightforward methods is dry storage. No lime water, no oil, just a cool, dry place where eggs can chill. Literally, it's like putting the eggs in a time capsule, but instead of pulling out old photos, you get breakfast. Many Amish homes have specially designed areas perfect for food preservation. These spaces are naturally cooler and slightly humid, creating an ideal environment for keeping eggs fresh for years. No fancy technology required. It's kind of like your pantry, except instead of finding dusty canned beans, you uncover a treasure trove of perfectly preserved eggs. Eggs come with their own natural defenses. The shells are sturdy and do a great job keeping out bacteria, as long as you don't crack them. The Amish simply let the eggs rest in their cool, dry spots, untouched and unbothered, until it's time to use them. It's a method that makes you rethink our reliance on modern conveniences. We live in a world where refrigeration is a must, and if leftovers sit out for too long, we panic. But the Amish? they've shown us that sometimes the simplest solutions work best. On a personal note, I've had my fair share of fridge disasters. You know the ones, finding that mysterious container in the back that's turned into a science experiment. Compare that to the Amish, who can confidently leave eggs out for years without breaking a sweat. It's humbling, really. Let me tell you a quick story. One time I discovered a forgotten carton of eggs shoved in the back corner of my fridge. They were so old they could have qualified for a historical exhibit. It's moments like those that make me admire how the Amish avoid food waste entirely. They trust their instincts and natural processes, which means no moldy surprises or weird smells lurking in their kitchens. In a typical Amish household, eggs aren't just for breakfast. They're a cornerstone of their baking traditions. From bread to pies, those long-lasting eggs are essential. Imagine whipping up cookies with eggs preserved years ago. That's not just resourcefulness. That's a testament to their skill. And believe it or not, properly preserved eggs often taste better than the ones you grab at the grocery store. What makes the Amish methods so inspiring is their connection to the land and their traditions. They don't rely on fancy appliances or high-tech gadgets. It's all about the basics: nature, patience, and time. In a world where everything feels rushed, their approach is a refreshing reminder of the value of simplicity. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Are these preserved eggs really safe to eat? It's a fair concern, especially if you've ever cracked open an egg and been knocked back by a smell you'll never forget. But fear not. The Amish have been doing this for generations, and they've mastered the art of keeping their food safe. The secret lies in how the eggs are treated and stored. Methods like lime water soaking, oiling, and dry storage don't just keep the eggs fresh. They actively reduce the chances of spoilage. When done correctly, these techniques preserve the egg's natural barrier, keeping bacteria out and the eggs intact. Here's a little-known fact. Properly preserved eggs might actually be safer than fresh ones from the store. That's because fresh eggs come with a natural protective coating that shields them from bacteria. But when eggs are washed, like they are in most commercial processes, that coating is removed and the clock starts ticking. With Amish methods, that barrier is maintained or even enhanced, extending the egg's lifespan far beyond what we're used to. I had a friend who was skeptical about preserved eggs. The first time she cracked one open, she wrinkled her nose, expecting something awful. But to her surprise, it was perfect. No weird smells, no funky textures, just a normal, fresh egg. She's now a die-hard fan of egg preservation and swears it's a game changer. People who've tried preserved eggs rave about them. Some even bake with eggs that have been sitting around for years and report delicious results. No doctor visits required. It's a glowing endorsement of these age-old methods. The Amish aren't reckless with their eggs. They follow a few simple rules to ensure safety. Start fresh. Only the freshest eggs are preserved. They inspect each one like a rare gem. Cracks or unusual spots. That egg's out. Trust your senses. Before using a preserved egg, they rely on a simple water test. If it sinks, it's good to go. If it floats, toss it out. These straightforward steps have been their secret to success for generations. Now you might be wondering, how can you get started? Do you need an Amish secret handshake? Nope. Just a little determination and a few basic supplies. Fresh, unwashed eggs. If possible, get them from a local farm or free-range chickens. Fresh eggs retain their natural coating, which is key to preservation. A preservation method, whether it's lime water, oiling, or dry storage, pick the technique that works best for you. With these tools and techniques, you're well on your way to becoming the egg guru of your kitchen. Stay tuned, because next we'll dive into the step-by-step process of preserving eggs Amish style. You won't want to miss it. Before we dive into the how-to of egg preservation, here's a quick tip. When you buy eggs, don't hesitate to inspect them. Check for cracks or imperfections. No one wants a spoiled surprise when it's time to whip up an omelet or bake a cake. Once you've secured the freshest eggs, it's time to pick your preservation method. Let's start with one of the simplest methods. Lime water. All you need is food-grade lime calcium hydroxide and water. Mix about 1 ounce of lime into a quart of water and stir until it dissolves. Now comes the fun part. Soaking the eggs. Place your eggs gently into a container and pour the lime water mixture over them. ensuring they're fully submerged. It's like sending your eggs on a spa retreat. Only instead of relaxation, they get a shield of preservation magic. If you're feeling fancy, try oiling your eggs. You'll need mineral oil, which you can easily find at drugstores or online. The process is straightforward. Dab a paper towel with the oil and gently rub it over the surface of each egg. This creates a protective layer that locks out air and keeps bacteria at bay. Think of it as giving your eggs a luxurious beauty treatment. They'll look glossy and stay fresh for much longer. Prefer something even simpler? Try a vinegar dip. Mix equal parts vinegar and water, then give your eggs a quick dunk. This method is minimal effort for maximum impact. After all, if vinegar works wonders for pickles, why not eggs? Once your eggs are preserved, proper storage is crucial. Find a cool, dark, and dry place to keep them. Amish homes often have specially designed food storage areas, but you can make do with a basement, a pantry, or a cool cupboard. The key is maintaining a stable temperature and avoiding direct sunlight. No high-tech gadgets are needed, just good old-fashioned common sense. Feeling adventurous? Why not experiment with different methods? Try some eggs in lime water, oil others, and give a few a vinegar dip. It's like having your very own egg laboratory. Plus, it's a great way to impress your friends with your culinary experiments. Imagine their amazement when you casually mention, "Oh, these eggs? Preserved for over a year." To take it a step further, consider starting an egg journal. Jot down which methods you used, how long the eggs lasted, and your favorite recipes featuring these preserved gems. Before you know it, you'll be an egg-preserving expert, ready to inspire others to join the tradition. Preserving eggs isn't just a skill, it's an opportunity to share stories and build community. Picture this: friends gathered around, their eyes wide with curiosity as you reveal your stash of preserved eggs. You share tales of your experiments, favorite recipes, and maybe even a baking triumph or two. Who knows? One day you might find yourself at a baking competition, proudly declaring, "These eggs? They're 15 years old. Want a taste?" That's the kind of story people won't forget, and it's all thanks to a little know-how in the timeless art of preservation. Preserving eggs for years might sound like a dare straight out of a reality show, but the Amish have made it an art form. The key? Trust your senses, follow the guidelines, and don't forget to have fun along the way. With a sprinkle of creativity and a dash of determination, you're well on your way to joining the ranks of the egg-preserving elite. Think checking expired milk is tough? Try cracking open a 15-year-old egg. That's a whole new level of egg-citement. Thankfully, the Amish have a tried-and-true method to ensure your preserved eggs won't lead to a breakfast disaster: the humble yet brilliant water test. Start with a bowl of water, preferably not the one soaking your dirty dishes. Gently place the egg into the water and watch closely. If it sinks and lies flat on the bottom, congratulations. You've got a winner ready to become the star of your next meal. If it stands upright, it's not the freshest, but it's still usable. Just cook it thoroughly. If it floats to the top, game over. That egg's long past its prime. Toss it and move on. The first time I tried the water test, I thought I was brave. I dropped an older egg into the bowl, hoping for success, but it floated like a buoy in the ocean. My heart sank faster than the egg should have. Lesson learned. Sometimes food adventures come with life lessons, like knowing when to let go of an egg and your stomach's dignity. Even if an egg passes the water test, your nose is the ultimate referee. When you crack it open, take a good sniff. If it smells even slightly off, like a bad fish market on a sweltering summer day, do yourself a favor and toss it. The Amish rely on all their senses, and so should you. If you're feeling adventurous, practice with a batch of eggs that are a little older, but not too far gone. It's a great way to build confidence before diving into long-term preservation. Plus, it's the perfect excuse to whip up a fluffy omelet, a savory quiche, or a hearty frittata. Just warn your friends not to hold their breath while you crack the eggs. The suspense can be more dramatic than you'd expect. In a world where an astonishing 30% of food goes to waste, the Amish methods of egg preservation are more relevant than ever. Not only do these techniques save money, but they also cut down on grocery store trips. A win for anyone trying to dodge overpriced kale chips or trendy health foods. But it's more than just practicality. Preserving eggs carries a sense of nostalgia and connection to past generations. Imagine passing down family traditions of food preservation, less about scrolling on your phone and more about real, tangible skills. Preserving food is also a powerful step towards sustainability. As food prices rise and environmental concerns grow, the Amish remind us that self-sufficiency is both practical and eco-friendly. These skills could even be life-saving in emergencies, like power outages. Picture this. At your next potluck, you proudly share a dish made with preserved eggs, declaring, "These eggs? They're from 15 years ago." You're not just making a meal, you're making a statement about resilience, creativity, and embracing a simpler, more sustainable way of life. Whether you live in the city or the countryside, stepping away from the fridge to explore food preservation could be a game changer. At the very least, you'll never have to worry about running out of fridge space again.